1 week season.
Hey, welcome in, OWS fam. So glad you are with us. We are back in the DFS lab. As always, this show presented by 1 week season, where we build a lineup on DraftKings and use it as a way to talk through the upcoming slate. In this case, it is week 15. Excited to jump into this one. I'm your host, Cheeseman. And I'm excited to welcome up Papy. By the way, watching this on Friday, December 13th, or maybe it's Saturday, maybe it's Sunday morning, but this is when we are recording it. Papy, how's it going, man? How quick look back, how did week 14 turn out for you?
Saquon Barkley, man, just take me out back and put me down. It's just like
Same here.
I sat here and I said, the only reason I can see him failing is because it's DFS and that's how it works. And what do you know? He failed. So it's frustrating because I had a lot of really good teams, including the Viking stack on a team that I bet the second most on. And I just had Saquon everywhere. I mean, I had him on 95% of my lineups. And that hurt because 17 points at 9K is not getting it done. And it was rough because of that. I mean, not a winning week because Saquon submarined so many of my teams, but I still did cash on that Viking stack team. So got some back, not the end of the world, but man, it's just like what could have been if I wouldn't have been so bullish on Saquon. But yeah, that's what you get sometimes.
I've been there so many times, dude. It's so frustrating when you hit a stack like that Viking stack and you just need like the one sure thing to happen with Saquon Barkley. Like you said, it really is true. It's DFS, and that's just the way that it goes sometimes. Like I had Saquon in every lineup, and so I felt that pain as well. We were just chatting about this, but Saquon has been tackled at the 1 yard line 11 times this season, and he has not gotten any of those 11 touchdowns like the following player or whatever. Jalen Hurts has turned 10 of those 11 into touchdowns of his own. So, yeah, man, it's just, what can you do, man? It was a great play. It was a good play. I would do it again if we had the same spot this week. I would play Saquon again and probably at lower ownership. But what can you do? Like you said, it's DFS, and is what it is, I guess.
Let me be the first one to say this. I think the Eagles' false start on that tush push play. I do. I've seen it now 2 or 3 times. And it's very subtle, but I think they get just a little bit extra on that tush push play. I think someone's going to notice eventually and be like, they're false starting by just a split second, and that's all it takes to make it more effective. So let me be the first one to throw that take out there.
Hey, yeah, you heard it here first. That's that hot take. That is a sizzling take. But I mean, dude, the tush push and the Lions going forward on 4th down, to me as a fan of a team who seems to play the Eagles, a Packers fan, play the Eagles and the Lions obviously a lot. Man, just those annoy me so much because they're so hard to stop. It's like the tush push is just such a hard play to stop. So we digress, man. But yeah, dude, week 15 is upon us. Let's pull up ownership here. And what kind of stands out to you initially? I know you were saying before we started the show that as we get later into the season, a lot of times the chalk does get a little bit sharper. And so you have to kind of eat a little more of that chalk, though you still can find, small edges.
Yeah, I think when you get later into the season, the stats true up a little bit. We kind of know which teams do which things, what they're good at, what they're bad at. So the field knows that too. And, people start to play better, make better plays and better decisions. But that being said, you only have to be different in 1 or 2 spots to make your lineup really different. And me personally, I think the majority of my big wins tend to come at the end of the year. Week 18 last year, 2 or 3 years ago, week 16. So I think that it's okay that things true up a little bit if you're paying attention, because you can sort of take advantage of sort of knowing, oh, this team does this well, this team does that well. So it happens at the end of every year, but I don't think that means that you're at a disadvantage. You just kind of have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you look at ownership here, is there anything that stands out to you that you like?
Yeah, so the one thing that stands out to me, and I wrote this game up for the edge, was the low ownership on the Jets passing attack. And it's actually really low, even lower than I was expecting. I mean, Rodgers is like 2.7%. Both of his primary receivers are under 10%. And that's interesting because the Jaguars' pass defense stinks. And I think that the reason why their ownership is going to be low is because the total's low. The perception around Aaron Rodgers is that he's having a really horrible year. And people probably think that, well, if the Jets control that game, their passing game won't do that much. I don't necessarily see it that way. I think that even though the winner of this game is really the loser because, draft order is more important to both of these teams or should be, I don't think it's more important to Aaron Rodgers. He's a really proud guy. I think he's going to try to lay one on a weak opponent, run it up and show, hey, I'm still a guy who can throw for a 400-yard, 4-touchdown game, even if it's against the worst secondary in the league. Just my lean. And so I sort of think like the Jets passing game to me is probably going to be, I'm going to be overweight for sure. I'll certainly have them in probably one of my tighter builds. And the other thing is because they're so concentrated. I mean, he throws to Adams and Wilson, like that's it really. It's so concentrated that, if Rodgers has a big game, then Wilson and Adams are having a good game, like almost for sure. So, you don't have to really guess where it's going. And I think that makes them easier plays too.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And if the Jets do end up scoring, 4 touchdowns or more, and you have that stack, I mean, just imagine getting Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. Especially Devontae, just knowing the profile that he is. Obviously, he's a little older, but he used to be way more expensive. And I'm not actually sure if he's hit a ceiling game this year, but yeah, the stack is also affordable. So I do like that element of it as well. So, and to your point, man, yeah, Rodgers, he's a proud guy, and the news cycles have certainly he's taken a beating. So I agree with that. So with that, and looking here now at DraftKings, any just major injury situations we need to touch on before we jump into, given that it is Friday morning, practices are just about to take place. We'll have a clearer picture within the next few hours, certainly. But at this point, in terms of injuries, anything that we need to touch on?
So there's a lot of banged up running backs, and depending on who plays and who doesn't, there could be value in their backups. I think Tony Pollard is maybe on the wrong side of questionable, but at least 50-50, which would make Spears a pretty appealing play at his price. For I think what is 4,300 is Spears. I think we said before the show. That's if Pollard's out, it's going to be hard to not be on him.
Yeah, at home against Cincinnati, who just gave up a pretty decent game to Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati can't stop anybody, but neither can Jacksonville, and Tennessee didn't light them up last week. But again, it's more just the $4,300 price tag for a starting running back at home in a good matchup. It's like, okay, well, I probably have to do that. I think Hall is probably gonna sit, but I wrote that game up, and they split work almost evenly between Isaiah Davis and Braylon Allen last week. So, 50-50 split situation is tough there. I think Bucky is like a true 50-50, and if he were to sit, you could go with White, but that's a tough matchup on the road against the Chargers. So, not as appealing as like a Spears at home against the Bengals. So there's definitely some banged up running backs that are really worth considering.
Absolutely. Those are kind of the spots that we talked about. Also, the tight end situation for the Chargers. I know you mentioned that. Stone Smart, who is, very cheap down here, could be a great play.
Great name too. Great name. Love the name. I should have named my boy Stone. I wasn't smart enough.
Oh man, I see what you did there.
Yeah, you see what I did there. It just comes to me. But no, Stone Smart is a great play at tight end. Just min priced basically, and they use their tight end a lot in that offense. So I think he makes a lot of sense.
Cool, dude. Well, where do you want to start with this build? We're looking at, as always, on this Friday show, the two of us tackle the Millie, and so it's the typical structure: $20 for the entry fee, 150,000 entrants, and of course, cool $1 million to first place. So where do you want to start here?
So we're going to start with the Jets stack. We're going to go with Rodgers, and we're going to double it up with Adams and Wilson. And this is, just for all the reasons I kind of just mentioned. The Jaguars' secondary is awful. They're affordable. They're going to be low owned. And we know that Rodgers is a proud guy. And I think he's going to try to hang a big game on a weak opponent and show everybody like, hey, I can still drop a 404 game. I still have that in me. I don't think he's gonna take it easy because draft order. I think he's gonna try to hurt the Jaguars.
That would be great if Rodgers had 404, dude. Oh my word, dude, that'd be a huge game for him.
Yeah, and the other thing too, it's so concentrated and he doesn't run, so you know that if he's having a big game, his receivers are having a big game. Like, and we know it's going to be Adams and Wilson. Now I'm saying we know it. Watch, it'll be all Lazard because again, that's how DFS works. But we can feel relatively confident that it's going to be Wilson and Adams if Rodgers has a big game. Since we already talked about him, let's go ahead and put my favorite name in there with Stone Smart.
Yes. Man, that frees up a lot of salary. That always feels good.
Yeah, good matchup. Tampa Bay surrenders a lot of production to tight ends, and he's probably going to play the vast majority of the snaps. He produced last week, so I think again at his price, it's just like, okay, I won't think that hard about it. I'll play him.
Yep, absolutely. Looks like he is drawing some ownership, but again, at that price, it's it's certainly just worth it to just swallow that chalk and move on.
Yeah, and I don't know that he will end up being quite that chalky. I guess we'll see. I feel like sometimes we overestimate salary savers being chalky because people just see the price tag and go somewhere else. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. He might be chalky. All right. So as far as our running backs go, let's go ahead and put Chase Brown in there, and he's not going to sneak up on anybody. But he's just underpriced, and until they account for his workload. I mean, look at his workload. Yeah. Just seeing a ton of targets, a ton of carries, playing almost every snap. It's just, I don't know. He should be more, and his price has been steadily rising, but you could easily argue he should be $8K, and just feels like a guy who is going to have a good game in almost any game script. So we're just going to plug him in, and the
targets he's getting, man. I mean, he's basically has a passing game, fantasy points just from passing game work alone. I'm just looking at the pass attempts. I mean, the Bengals are throwing so much, but he has a 10-point floor from just passing work alone.
Yeah, Burrow is obviously very good, and the Bengals are playing like it's 20-20 out there. They're the only team that's still throwing at those kind of rates that we saw over the last 5 years. And Burrow is not afraid to check it down. I mean, if you want to play him conservatively and drop back against Chase and Higgins, he'll just dump it off to Chase for 5 to 10 yards a time. And that ends up being like 5 to 10 targets for Chase. And we know in PPR play, those little 5 to 10 yard receptions matter a lot. So it's tough to not like Brown at his price.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Love it.
All right. Next, let's go ahead and put in Rico from the Cowboys. Another great name, Rico. He is I think he's 6,100.
Okay. Yep. Rico Dowdle.
We're going to try to pick on the Carolina run defense again, even though Saquon didn't get it done last week for us. Maybe Rico can. And, this is another situation where he's sort of taken over the backfield, and his price hasn't necessarily caught up to his involvement. And so, we're going to go ahead and put him in there and just say, hey, if you're getting all the backfield work against Carolina, I'm not going to think that too hard about it. I'm just going to play you. And that's really what goes into this. We're trying to pick on Carolina. We know they can't tackle. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. And okay. Yep. Love that. So that gives us 3 spots left with still defense to go. So still some flexibility to work with here.
So speaking of defense, let's go down there now, and let's go ahead and do a little mini correlation here. We're going to put in the Cowboys defense. So we're going to play Rico. We're going to play the Cowboys defense. And again, we're trying to pick on Carolina. But really, the Cowboys defense, I think a lot of people forget coming into the season, they were most people's top, yearly defense. And they had been the top fantasy defense for the past, 2 or 3 seasons. And they just got crushed by injuries early in the year. They are a totally different defense when Parsons plays, like just totally, utterly different.
Yep.
And he's playing. So I just think Carolina can be picked on, pair him with Rico, and they're affordable. They're under 3K. So I think they make a lot of sense.
Absolutely, man. I like that. All right, I'm curious to see what you do next here. With certainly you got some room to play with. You can go a couple of mid-tier players or a stud and a value. I'm curious where you're going to go.
So a lot of different things you could do with this salary, which is why I'm sort of revealing the team in this way, because I think there are a lot of different ways you could go with these last two. Let's go. We're going to go with our flex first here, and we're going to put in Brian Robinson Jr. from the Commanders. And I'm proud of myself. I called him the Commanders, not the Redskins, for once.
Yeah, I make that mistake.
But this is another play where like the Saints just can't tackle. Like if you watch them, like they just can't tackle. There's no way to say it. They're horrific at tackling. And with Eckler hitting the IR, Robinson has sort of taken over more of a lead role there. He still doesn't get a ton of targets, but he does get most of the carries. I think this is a game that the Commanders control. The Saints are beat up. Their offense is beat up. I don't think Carr is going to play. And so, if the Commanders control this game, I could see it being a game where he gets 25, 30 carries. And I think if he gets that many carries, he's going to hurt the Saints.
Absolutely, man.
All right. Last but not least, let's go ahead and get Jerry Jeudy in there.
Jerry Jeudy, dude.
Jerry Jeudy, man. My best ball darling, Jerry Jeudy. Got a lot of Jerry Jeudy, and he's really picked it up these last couple of weeks. This is a product of sort of the rule of like play one of Jameis Winston's receivers every week. We all know that he's a gunslinger. We all know that he's going to throw the ball all over the yard. And then Njoku, I think, is supposed to. Well, I don't know if it's for sure he's going to miss, but I think if you read the tea leaves, I think Njoku is probably on the wrong side of questionable.
Yep, remained sidelined on Thursday. So, yeah, probably a true questionable, but not looking good at this moment.
Especially because it's a hammy. I feel like the hammies are the ones where it's like if they don't practice the first 2 days with a hammy, a lot of times that's the wrong side of questionable. So if he's out, that's just even more targets for Jeudy. I mean, Njoku has seen some crazy target volume the last 2 weeks. Like if he was healthy, I'd probably be saying play Njoku. But I think he saw 17 and 13 targets the last 2 weeks. Something crazy Njoku saw the last 2 weeks.
Njoku,
so,
right.
Yeah, Njoku. I think he saw 17, 13. I think he's seen 30 targets last. Yeah, right. 30 targets the last 2 weeks. So
yeah, that's wild.
That's a lot of targets to go around, and it's not like Jeudy has been left out the last 2 weeks. I mean, he's seen a lot of targets the last 2 weeks also. So if those 30 targets that went to Njoku are now available, how many of those are going to go to Jeudy just makes me think that we're going to see a 10 to 15 target game for Jeudy with the possibility of a 15 to 20 target game if he gets, just all goes to him. That's just, hard to ignore. I think you almost have to play one of the Browns pass catchers, like sort of a rule of like play one of the Browns pass catchers. So there's my Browns pass catcher.
I like it, man. And yeah, that we know that Kansas City is hard to run on. Cleveland is also at home, and so probably just a little extra boost to the potential success of their offense. And Jameis is going to throw a ton, and so yeah, that's a great. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, in terms of places to go for a value receiver, I'd say one of the Cleveland pass catchers is a great spot to look because you also have Elijah Moore. Cedric Tillman could. Well, actually, what is Cedric Tillman's status? Is he going to be back?
Yeah, you can. I forget what he costs, but I don't
Tillman.
think it's. Yeah, I think he's another one where it's iffy. I think he was limited. Is that right? Yeah, he was.
Yeah, limited, but concussion. So if he clears
Right.
the concussion protocol, he'll be good to go. And so, yeah, I mean, dude, yeah, I like this build, dude. I like the thoughts with Judy. Good stuff, man.
Yeah. So basically, the real spot you're being different on this build is the Jets passing attack. And that's something to keep in mind later. Like I say, later in the year when the chalk gets a little bit better, you only have to be really different in one spot. And if the Jets passing attack goes off, it won't matter if the rest of the guys are chalk as long as they hit, because if you need the Jets passing attack, then that will set your lineup apart.
Yep, exactly, and make you different. Awesome. Great stuff, Pappy. And for those listening on the podcast, the lineup that we finished on was, Aaron Rodgers with the double stack of Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams, Chase Brown and Rico Dowdle in the running backs, tight end Stone Smart, Brian Robinson Jr., Cowboys D, and the final receiver was Jerry Jeudy. Pappy, great stuff, man. Any final thoughts before we ship this one off for Week 15?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best ball playoffs this week. Super excited. I personally beat the advance rate on DK and Underdog for the third year in a row, although just barely this year, but still got above it. And I've seen a lot of tweets out there regarding best ball this past week, and to sort of sum them up, a lot of them are saying things like, well, best ball's mostly luck. And, you have to avoid injuries, and you have to get the guys who just go off in the weeks 15 through 17. And sure, there's some truth to that. But I think that it's much more akin to me to like a large field poker tournament where you will see better players consistently getting deeper into the tournament. Now, yes, They might not always win, because to win in a large field poker tournament, you have to win a lot of flips and you have to run hot and you might have to suck out a little bit, but you will still see the better players making deeper runs. And I think best ball is very similar to that. So if you're one of the people out there seeing a lot of tweets like, oh, best ball's all luck, like, no, it's not. Yes, there is luck, but it is certainly not all luck.
Yeah, it's great stuff, dude. And I completely agree. I mean, kind of like DFS tournaments as well. Like the best players are consistently putting themselves in the kind of the top 1% or whatever is kind of the metric. But ultimately, you do still have to have some luck fall your way in order to to take down the tournament. So absolutely.
Yep.
Awesome, dude. Pappy, as always, thanks for joining at the DFS Lab. Good luck for you Week 15, and we'll talk to you next week, dude.
Yeah, see you guys all at the top.